How to beat the Hydra clan boss now that it's out. I love making these guides and I know you guys really respond well to this, so we're going to go over this today. And this is my favorite type of guide because as easy as it may sound to make a team that I found that works for me, the Hydra just came out, it's brand new. I've probably spent 12 hours, 13 hours testing this, trying to figure out teams, but to find 6 champions that most of the player base has, it's not very ideal. Of course, you can add substitutions, this and that, but what it comes down to is we want to make sure you guys understand the mechanics, so no matter what champions you bring in, you know what to expect when you get in there. So I have a team here. I'm going to start. Okay, looks like I just restarted it. It's perfectly fine. So we are on the hard difficulty right now, and this team, don't mind the legendaries. They have nothing to do with anything. This is not going to be a viable team. I mean, maybe it will be, but probably not. This is simply to show you the buffs you want, debuffs you want, the mechanics of the Hydra, so you can bring in any team of 6 after this, and you'll have a much higher chance of success. On top of that, I will do a separate video kind of showing the best champions I found for single use, so you can kind of put together your own team based on your specific roster. So of course, first we have Brogni, then we have Norog, Krisk, Satara, Inquisitor, Shamael, and finally Lydia here. So the first thing we want to talk about is survivability. I'm sure if you've already been in here and whether you've used the key or you've redone it, survivability is going to be quite the thing and quite the challenge for most players. So what's the best way to approach that? The answer is going to be shields. Shields are hands down the best way to deal with all incoming damage. Of course, Underpriest Brogni, who's right behind me, is one of the best, if not the best champion. Also, if you guys remember, thinking back to the fusion, we said this has no place in the game. Sigmund, how are you doing now? So if you did go for Sigmund, kind of like I speculated on, there's no reason why they would have released that champion with no intention of it having a use. He's also going to be a good champion to fill in that shield role here. So as we can see, we have Krisk here. He applies decreased speed. Of course, only dropped on one champion here, but one of the key things is going to be how do we cleanse this fear? So as we can see, Inquisitor Shamael is hands down the strongest champion. He deserves a video all to his own, which I'm going to do, but if you have him, you are very lucky. If you have 3 of this guy, you're extremely lucky. I'm fortunate enough to have 3 that I have saved in the past. So if you have 3 of these guys, you never have to worry about the true fear debuff. However, if you don't have Inquisitor Shamael and you aren't that lucky with the upcoming Void 2 times weekend or any weekend that's going to come in the future here, you do want a cleanser. You're going to want someone like a Doom Priest or any single cleanser. Now, a single cleanser with a cooldown isn't going to be the most ideal champion to use, but it is going to be better than nothing if you can time it properly. You would want to avoid hitting the head if that was the case here, which is going to make the next point very important. What do you bring? AoE champions, single target champions? The answer is you kind of need both depending on what strategy. Now, one thing you're going to notice is I'm not bringing a hex debuff. What does that mean? It means I cannot target this guy 100% of the time. Am I worried about that? Not even a little bit. Why am I not worried about it? Because there are ways to get around killing this head without targeting it 100% of the time. So one of the first quite obvious ways is going to be someone with an AoE ability is always going to hit this champion. The next one, of course, HP burn is extremely strong in an environment and pretty much setting like this. Now, the other important mechanic that is going to be coming up soon here, let's just go ahead and cycle through a few turns so we can see it. Block buffs. So which head's going to go first? Just so you guys know, it's going to be this head of mischief here. He is going to attempt to steal all of the buffs on one champion, apply it to himself. Then the following turn, what he's going to do is he's going to apply like a buff spread. I know we have debuff spread, but he's going to do a buff spread to his whole team, and they're all going to get all of the buffs that he stole, and you're going to have a very, very hard time, especially with some of the buffs you see here. Increase attack, we don't want that on anybody ever. Just like we never want that on. So how do we counteract that? I brought Norog, but it's always good to have a backup plan. Who is my backup plan? That currently is going to be Sathalia. If worst case scenario happens, I have Sathalia to use 100% chance of removing all buffs because she is booked on a 3-turn cooldown. One thing to note about Inquisitor Shamael, whoever you put in the leader spot is going to have their turn meter boost, which is why I picked Sathalia for this instance here, just in case this is on cooldown and we have an unlucky situation where buffs are stolen. Black buffs isn't currently applied to the boss, and it's looking like a wipe. Sathalia can have her turn meter boost by this, and in return, this run will be saved simply because of where I placed Sathalia in the order of this whole entire team. Now, if you are using Inquisitor Shamael, ideally, if you want to proc a bunch of counterattacks here, you're going to go ahead and smack the blue head. Really easy to notice, that's going to start triggering counterattacks, boosting turn meters. As we can see, Sathalia, if we go a little bit closer, her turn meter is getting boosted practically all the way back up, so she's going to get an extra turn. Now, Inquisitor also has a really strong A2 ability here. Of course, you can't True Fear here, so we're just going to start hitting a target. And if you have an AoE composition here, one thing to keep in mind is you're going to want to kill all of the heads as evenly as you can. Why do you want to do that? Because once you decapitate all of the heads, they become invulnerable, taking increased damage, and of course, the more heads you can deal increased damage to, the better. If your team is built off of AoE, then of course you want as many down as possible. Now, if you have more of a single target group, then you're going to want to focus down a head right away, get it down very quickly, and keep focusing that head, doing a little bit of damage here and there to the other 3 remaining Hydra heads. Now, one important thing here, and something that really drives home the point that I've been saying for the past 2.5 years while being a content creator, you need to crit cap or become close to crit cap on every single champion all of the time, and Hydra is the perfect example why. If you do this, your damage is going to be so much stronger than it would be if you didn't do this. Ideally, on any boss fight that's going to have a long duration, you want 85% crit on all of your champions as a minimum. I know that's going to be a bit harder to do, but remember, this came out after Ultra Nightmare. So if you want to look at the way progression's going, you can compare Ultra Nightmare is a little bit harder than the normal or first version of this Hydra clan boss. It may seem extremely difficult now simply because it's brand new. That won't be the case, trust me. In about 1 week, 2 weeks, the same thing happened with Ultra Nightmare. It took like 9 keys to top chest Ultra Nightmare Demon Lord when it first came out, and now look at us, we're doing 700 million damage in a key. So trust me, don't freak out if it is seeming too hard at first. Everyone's going to figure it out. You're going to have a much better understanding, and a video like this hopefully should bring you to that next level on top of the next video I'm going to come out with that's going to give you the best champion specific types that you can use that have proven to be very strong in this kind of matchup here. So one of the reasons why I am using champions like Underpriest Brogni as well as Sathalia is that HP burn on the A1. We said we wanted to deal damage to the head that has a, I believe, 75% chance of misdirecting our champion. So how do we counteract that? Easy, we use A1 HP burn champions. Ideally with the counterattack would be nice. So every time you're hit, you have a chance to reapply it here. Now we can do this, trigger the counterattacks, get Sathalia another turn here, and rinse and repeat. Now, of course, we do have weak affinity. Let's go ahead A1 with Krisk again. Now, one thing to keep in mind, I know I mentioned this and kind of moved on very quickly. Why do we want champions that don't heal and provide shields? It's because I think we can barely see on anybody. No, we haven't taken too much damage yet. So once you do heal, then it's going to be the Head of Decay here, as we can see from the passive. Whenever any champion is healed, decreases their max HP by 15% of the value of the heal up to 75%. You do get refunded 50% of this once you do kill it. I believe it's 50%. Let's just make sure. It doesn't even say. Okay, when the head is decapitated, then restores 50% of the max. Okay, so it does restore 50% once you kill it. So you go from 75, you gain 50% of that back to 75. Now 75 may not seem like a lot, but once you start getting to the higher difficulties or wherever is high difficulty for you compared to where your progression is, You're going to want to avoid that at all costs. Trust me, the damage is going to creep. And in my opinion, personally, the rotation we see in front of us is probably going to be one of the easier ones we're going to encounter here. So with all that being said, I'm going to throw this on auto and kind of talk about a few points, keeping an eye on things. One thing about autoing this isn't like a true auto like you would get from the Demon Lord. This is more something where you kind of have to watch it the whole time because the AI isn't very smart. So we do have reflect damage here, so of course that's a, I guess, head, so to speak, that we don't want to focus at all. We have increased speed. Okay, so now a buff is stolen here. Norog wasn't able to apply block buffs on the champions in time. We're going to take it off of auto. Perfect example of why we bring Sathalia. We don't want strengthen, and we definitely don't want increased speed on these champions. And look, it's on cooldown. I had it on auto. She used it and she shouldn't have. So we're going to hit this head here. We're going to use Inquisitor Shamael to reboost the turn meter as much as we can of Sathalia, making sure that we have a chance to get her another turn, getting rid of those buffs. And the smart thing to do here, if you're in a situation like this, let him spread the buffs first and then strip it so his turn meter goes all the way down. If you don't do this, what's going to happen? I will tell you what's going to happen. So if you don't do this, he is going to opt out of the whole buff spread thing, and he's going to just take more buffs from your team. You don't want that. You want to avoid that at all costs. So we're going to burn this A1 here, wait for the head of Mischief, I believe, Mischief indeed, to spread these buffs. Let's go ahead and apply another shield to our champions here. Let's A1. So these shields here are really important to focus down because it will stun this target, kind of rendering a head useless, not for too long, but for long enough to you to catch up on things, cycle through cooldowns that could be useful to you. So it looks like we are cycling a little bit fast here, so let's go ahead, not hit the blue boss. We don't want to boost our turn meter just yet. Okay, now the buffs are spread, and now he's going to be counterattacking, boosting Sathalia's turn meter, and then we're going to get this cleanse going ASAP. So let's go ahead and debuff all of our champions here with defense down, which is also going to proc it. One good thing about the AoEs, you can proc it quite quickly here. Once again, let's extend the duration of our buffs. And let's get rid of this increased speed on everybody as soon as we can. Okay, so this has now stunned. As we saw, removing the buffs, easy set match. Don't have to worry about a thing here. What I do want to do now is kind of focus on one of the heads here, even though ideally you wouldn't want to kill this head if you have Inquisitor Shamael in your team. And I'm only mentioning this guy so many times because he's that good for pretty much all of Hydra. I think he's probably, I don't want to say it, it's too early, but I'm 99% confident this guy is going to be the best Hydra champion in the entire game. No questions asked. I don't think there's another champion as strong. And I say this all the time. This is, there's no single champion content. This would be the first time in Raid Shadow Legends that I could definitely say this guy proves that saying wrong with the Hydra specifically. So if you had to build a team around any one champion, it wouldn't work in pretty much every aspect of the game, but for Hydra it 100% works for Inquisitor Shamael because of how good he is. Alright, so one quick example of the healing. Let's go ahead and heal Sathalia herself. As we can see, what did that do? It decreased the max enemy HP of Norog, Krisk, Sathalia, Inquisitor, and finally Lydia here. So this is why optimally you want to focus on a shield build like this. When you're getting hit, you're healing from that. Then we have the buff steal. Thankfully, we had block buffs on. Now we're going to go ahead and cycle through as best as we can. Now that we have one head decapitated, and hopefully, I mean not hopefully for my sake, but hopefully to show you all, a new head will appear. And not the current one we already had here. There is a increased chance based on the higher difficulty you go to receive a brand new Hydra head. It is not guaranteed. So one thing to focus on, and it's good this happened, a champion is going to get marked by this debuff, as we can see right here above Lydia. People have been saying it's based on crit damage. I have no reason not to believe them. I haven't tested it myself, so I couldn't say 100% if that's true, but they do say it is based on crit damage, which would make sense why Inquisitor Shamael was picked first. However, I don't think Lydia has the second highest crit damage on this team, so perhaps it is just random after the first one, or maybe I could have given her crit damage and I don't remember. So like we just stated, this head has a high chance of redirecting attacks here. This one was redirected to the one next to it. So how do we deal with this? Once again, the go-to answer is going to be HP burn on as many champions as possible and AoE abilities. So this is the second hardest difficulty here, and we're doing a pretty good job. Okay, perfect Head of Wrath. Really glad this spawned because there's a lot to talk about with this boss. I've seen so many people get caught off guard when fighting the Hydra and this guy comes out. They're like, what is this? This isn't one of the first four, and it causes them to wipe, which is not good at all. So with that being said, we're just going to keep getting our attacks redirected here. We had block buffs on, which is good. Now we're going to start using AoEs, but as we start AoEing, we have to watch all of the heads. Specifically this one, this counter here is something you have to focus on even if you're on full auto. So keep this number in mind all the time. Once it hits 14, actually even before that, once it gets to like 11, that's kind of like, okay, you really need to focus and prepare yourself for what is to come. If you don't, you could be in very, very rough shape here. So we're going to keep AoEing, increasing our chances of doing all of this. Unfortunately, as soon as we applied block buffs, the head all the way to the left here, Head of Decay, removed all of the buffs. So we're going to take it back from this champion, I believe, or we're going to let it have another turn. We do have 3 turns remaining, so it's a little bit close, but not really that close. Let's just go ahead, let him spread the buffs to all the champions here. And we're going to cycle through again. Okay, all of the buffs have been spread. Let's go ahead, smack ahead. Why not? 2 turns remaining before Inquisitor Shamael is gone forever. So as we can see, a provoke came out there, which is not good because it increases the marker. Now we're going to get rid of all of the buffs that were placed on these guys. We're going to protect our team a little bit. Throw some AoE down. Start working on this shield as much as we can. Let's see if we get lucky here. We got redirected. Unlucky. So pretty much the best thing to do is going to be apply HP burn to the next target to go, which would be this one, but it's weak affinity. Now we're going to decrease speed. We don't really need to. You know what? Let's go ahead and use this A2, get some more damage off. We do have 1 turn remaining here. Let's AoE again. And I guess we can, okay, we got redirected. Unlucky. Okay, the final turn, another AoE. And talk about cutting it close. I do this all the time. I probably shouldn't for progression's sake, but for the sake of the video, we're going to cut it close just to show you that don't freak out. If your champion gets eaten, all you have to do is hit pause, hit free regroup, which is probably the greatest thing they've added to this game in a very long time. Now we're going to increase speed here. Okay, so we are at 10 stacks for the Head of Wrath. This is the head that I said you really have to pay attention and focus on here. Why, you're going to see momentarily. So we want to make sure we have all of our huge defensives available to us, which is going to be Brogni's shield. We're taking a little bit damage there. We have weakened, so we definitely, okay, we're getting a little bit too close now. We're at 12. We want to probably not risk anything here. Norog's not going to get a turn. So what's the smartest thing to do? We're going to heal. We're going to A1. Try to cycle through as quick as possible. Block debuff, shield once again. And now we're going to A1, moving this to 13. Another champion has been consumed. This is going to happen a lot faster on the hard difficulty than normal, of course. So if this looks insane to you, don't worry about it. Now we're going to take increased defense off, I believe. Actually, you know what? I'm going to leave that on for now. We're not going to focus on that just yet. I want to proc Vengeance right now. Even though I have double weaken on, the shield is going to run out and we don't want the shield to run out. Okay, so that was Vengeance. It looked like it did nothing. However, it can be a massive problem, let me tell you that. So we did remove 2 buffs here. Perfect. Let's go ahead and do this. Start working on this. Okay, so we have a shield on top of the redirection. So there's so many things that are potentially going wrong right now for this team. Can we get lucky? Okay, we did get lucky. That was massive. The fact that he wasn't redirected here, even though Underpriest Brogni was. So we're going to cycle through here. We don't need to protect our team just yet. We're going to fish for ideal procs. Go ahead and A1. Get some more damage. Still getting redirected. Dealing a little bit of damage, nothing to worry about. So one thing for the Head of Wrath that I didn't talk about at all is if you're going to kill this head, you want to kill it during this buff right here that cannot be stripped. This is the ideal time to kill it. You don't really want to kill it when it's in low stacks or anything like that, because you do get a benefit from killing this boss here. If you do kill it under this effect, what you're going to do is you're going to deal damage to all of the heads, and there's a 25% chance of placing Leech on every single head for 2 turns, which is huge for you as it's a free source of healing. Now, once again, there is a countermeasure to this healing, because if your Head of Decay is alive and well, you're going to be reducing your max HP on top of that. So let's go ahead, start working on this champion, or this Hydra head right here, see if we can break him out. Buffs were stolen, unlucky. And now we're taking quite a bit of damage. We do still have attack down on here, which is good. Let's go ahead and do we protect our team? You know what? Looking at the turn meters, only this guy's going to go next, which is going to be the buff spread. So let's get some more AoE here because we are running very short on time to break this guy out. Okay, the buffs were spread. Let's try to get lucky. Redirected. We did get an extra turn, which is nice. AoE again here. Okay, so Chris died. You hate to see it. Unlucky. If I was playing this and paying a bit more attention, it would have worked out, but the main goal of this team, like I was saying before, is to show you guys the basic rundown of the mechanics, kind of give you an idea on how all of these bosses are going to work here. And I've actually never seen someone get... Okay, so this is, I was kind of expecting something crazy to happen. So Lydia is now gone. She is never coming back to the fight. You cannot revive her. Nothing can happen. This is the result of having a champion consumed and not breaking him out of that shield in time here. So keep that in mind. Make sure that never happens. I've personally never seen it. I was kind of expecting some cool animation. Maybe the head goes up and swallows your champion, you get to see some ball in going down the neck. That would have been cool, but it is what it is. So overall, this is the main point of the video, kind of giving you this basic rundown of the champions here, what they do. Buffs are being applied, debuffs are being applied. You have to be really careful. Now, one thing where this differs, and I get this question all the time, the damage does not ramp up for this boss like it does in the Demon Lord. So as time goes on, the champions aren't going to be doing more damage, with the exception of the Head of Wrath. It doesn't do more damage over time based on when it spawns, but this Vengeance counter is the only time where it does increase damage. Outside of that, nothing to worry about. If you can find a team to sustain your Hydra clan boss encounter, it's going to work throughout. Of course, RNG is a thing. We didn't get to see one of the heads that unfortunately didn't come out during this testing. If you do see that head, you're going to know right away because it's a complete pain. It's going to put this buff on them that looks like a poison that forces weak hits on your champions. If you don't have block debuffs, it's going to apply tons of poisons to your team, and it's a lot of damage. You want to avoid it at all costs. Trust me on that. And the next thing is, one reason I brought Lydia, and quite a few endgame players will have Lydia, is that same boss that is annoying with the poisons and all of that. When it pops up, is one of the heads will apply weaken on your entire team unless you have strengthen buff. Lydia is an awesome source of strengthen because we have defense down weaken, increase speed, strengthen, a single target block buff, which can be very strong if you have one head you really don't want to get, kind of like the Head of Mischief all the way to the right here, especially if you're bringing some type of Hex champion. And the reason why I did this video without Hex is because I did get quite a lot of people on stream saying, what if we don't have a Hex option? What if we skipped Vildrax? We said, no thank you, no time for that, and you skipped it. Are we stuck? The answer is no. I've done fine so far on all of the difficulties that I've tested out so far, and it hasn't been hard at all without using Hex. There are definitely tons of ways to get around it, and hopefully this kind of brief breakdown of the overall mechanics, not really the specific ones. Every head has its role here. which one to focus on. I would love to give that information, but it's not going to make sense to an entire player base. It has 100% to do with the 6 champions you bring with you. If you have tons of AoE, of course you're going to want to target champions. I believe it's maybe this one here. Decrease the damage all Hydras take from AoE. If you have lots of AoE, you want to kill this guy first, and then the same thing happens with single target champions. Decreases the damage all heads take from AoE. Okay, another AoE one. There is a single target head somewhere around here. Another AoE reduction, and another AoE reduction. Okay, so somewhere one of the heads reduces single target on the boss. Of course, if you're a single target whatever, you can either focus and burn that one or use your AoE champions to kind of cleave that head down. That is going to be a viable option, but to say which one's better, like I said, it depends on the 6 champions you as the player are going to bring. So with that being said, that's going to conclude my video. Make sure, and I can't stress this enough, I've made this mistake already, hit free regroup instead of end battle, or you're going to waste the key. What they should really do, if you hit end battle, there should be a confirm screen, and of course it would really be nice to have one extra layer of confirming what you're really doing, because this is a brand new button to the game. It's the same color, it's just to the left where the original end battle was. If they had put it in the middle, maybe less people would be clicking on it. I'm not sure at all. Or if they kind of put end battle maybe somewhere in the bottom right hand corner, would have made more sense. Maybe you guys had this mistake as well. Let me know in the comments if you've wasted a key thinking you were getting a free regroup and you hit end battle by mistake. So with all of that being said, that's my basic rundown on the Hydra. Hopefully this helps you out in completing this, giving you a little bit more understanding of what to focus on, how to understand things. Reading the turn meter is very important, kind of like you saw me doing a little bit of. Knowing when to hold cooldowns, when to use cooldowns. Yes, it's manual, and I did see one argument where someone was like, this is adding a lot more play time to the game. Some people were happy with that, some people weren't. However, all in all, it is new content. It's only weekly. You get 3 keys. Yes, it's a little bit of time. You can save it for the weekend. And one thing, if you're not too antsy, I would hold off on building any type of teams yet. The meta team isn't going to be discovered. The top damage team isn't going to be discovered. I think the highest damage I've personally done myself is about 134 million damage. That's going to get crushed. There's no records. Nothing's going to matter until a month down the line when we start seeing the hardest difficulty. Once the best players get their hands on the hardest difficulty, then we can make teams that are going to be useful for every single player. Until then, of course, some people can come up with strategies of kind of mix and match champions, like, oh, this team worked the first time I did it, so I'm going to make a video and put it out and say this is the ultimate free to play team, rare only team. I really and strongly advise everyone to kind of hold back. Don't just jump, say this is going to work forever. Trust me, we've seen it time and time again with new content. Better teams come out. It just takes time, and you do have to invest in all of these champions if you don't currently have them. If you have them, go ahead, throw it together, see what happens for you. But if you don't, try to save your resources until later on in the week when many more team compositions will be available. You won't have to sacrifice too much or start building all of these champions who might end up being replaced in the next video from wherever you saw it. I've seen that. That's another instance that I constantly see. One game-changing team composition comes out, then the next day a totally different one that's even better comes out, and the people who had that 24-hour window where they just saw the video, they're like, what do I do now? I just 6-starred this champion. So please wait a little bit. More information will come out. I'm going to give you guys a list of champions so far that are working really, really well in the earlier difficulties against the Hydra clan boss. From there, you can look at your team and you guys can probably come up with much better teams. Honestly, content creators, I don't think, to my knowledge, come up with the best teams in this game. They're always taken from other players. There are a few exceptions, of course. However, the bulk majority of the big teams that are going to come out, the idea was taken from a player, or it came from watching another player's run on Twitch. I've seen this all the time. Content creators lurk in other content creators' streams. They don't say a word, but they are watching what they're doing, watching the testing. It gives them an idea. They go back and they make a video saying, look at this awesome team. There's nothing wrong with that, but the point is, all of this stuff comes from the players and the players testing, Everyone's account's different, so keep that in mind. When trying to copy teams, you're not going to have gear like they have on the screen. You might not have the resources they have, so all of these things make a huge impact when approaching new content. Why am I kind of rambling on about this? The answer is, this is the first real new content we've had in a very long time. Yes, the Doom Towers came out, but this is like a mega Doom Tower because the rewards are very strong. It's going to be out for a while. And basically when they made the Hydra, they said, what are the meta teams for the Demon Lord? And they just countered all of them with all 6 of these heads here. And I really like that. It inspires a lot of outside thinking to get this done. So that's going to conclude my video. Give me your thoughts, give me your feedback. What do you guys think? As always, if you guys enjoyed this content, smash that like button, subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and I will see you all in the next upload.